Welcome again to another tutorial on IronCAD using two tall Toby's practice models dated May 8th. This is a pipe mount with hex. Fairly simple model here. So we have a base cylinder, an extrusion, and we have a kind of a ball off here at the side, or a rectangular component that's got some blends on this. We also have interesting, they have a counterpore on one side with a 4mm and then a hex on 8mm on the other side of this. And then we have some rib information. So we have a pattern of our ribs here that have a certain width of the rib. This rib is not shown here on the underside, so we create a regular evenly spaced rib at 5 places there, or 6 places total, and just reduce the first one, and then our other ones are 30 or 60mm apart as well inside of here to build our holes. So we'll go ahead and show you how this is done in IronCAD. So I'll go ahead and hop over to IronCAD, and I'll put this on another screen so I can refer to it. So what we're going to start off with is the cylinder, which is the base part of our model inside this case. So we have our cylinder here. A couple things just to note. I haven't shown this before, but I usually design it in perspective, but you can turn that off down at the bottom if you want to work at non-perspective. That's completely up to you, but that's just something in case you're watching this and want to change some of that information. But anyways, we're going to start off with a diameter of 122 that it gives us, and it has a thickness of 8 millimeters for that. So that's our base of our model. Next, we're going to go ahead and put a cylinder on here, and we know the diameter of that, let me make sure I find that one correctly, is 60 inside of there. So we'll go ahead and put 60 for the diameter, and we know the height of this actually is 100 millimeters from the bottom edge. So we know we're sitting on that. We dropped on the top face, which is 8 millimeters off. So we'll just put 92 on that. So we'll just double click that, put 92 on that one. So now we've got our basis for our model. The next piece I'm going to work on is actually this extrude at the top. So I'm going to put an extrude right here in the center, and I'm just going to do some things here. So I'm just going to pull this out, and I'll pull this other handle. I'm going to align to the center of this edge. I can snap to that quadrant, or just hold the shift key and select that edge. Inside there, I'm going to use that as a reference. Next, I'm going to extrude the opposite direction. So I'm just going to flip that down and set the width of this, which it gives us by right-clicking on this handle. I can set it symmetrically. I'm going to set that value to 50 as well. So now we know some other information. So we know from the center of this, the overall length is 45 to the center of the holes that it had on the model, plus the radius, which is 16. So we can just go ahead and select on this and say we only want that to be 45 plus 16, oops, not 165, 16 to give us our overall value. And we can do the same thing for the bottom handle. So we know the bottom handle is 30 millimeters center to center plus the 16, so 32 on that. So that'll be 62 on that one to set that. So that gives us our starting location, and we know these have a radius of 16. So we'll just go ahead and do a blend edge on here, and we want that to be 16 millimeters for that edge and that edge. And we can right click and hit OK or hit enter to apply that. Next, we know there's a through cylinder on this that has a diameter of 12, so let's drop that on there as well. So we'll drop that on there, set the diameter for that to 12, and we do the same thing to here. So the precise location to the center points there, and we're just typing in the values for those. On this model, so we have counterpores on one side. So on the left side here is a counterpore, so we're just going to use the cut cylinder, drag and drop it right onto the center there, and we know that has a diameter of, let's see, that is 24 with a depth of 4, so we'll hit enter. That'll take us to the other diameter handle, and if we keep hitting enter, you'll see it gets to the opposite handle, that yellow handle there, and we're going to set that value to 4 for the depth of that. So we can drop the other one on here and do the same thing, or we can use the TriBall. On this case, if we want to select the TriBall, we can right click on the center point. I want to say choose center point, and we're going to right click on that and say link here, and it'll give us an option there, and we're just going to basically create another one to the other side. Now we can do the same thing to the other side here for our hex. So again, if you scroll down in our catalogs, we have the polygons, and there's a cut polygon that we can drag and drop right to that center point there, and we know it's got a height value of, I believe, 20 millimeters. Let me double check that. Yeah, 20 millimeters from the top to bottom, so we'll just set that to 20, and it's got a depth, again, so we hit our handle, we get our depth of 8 on that one. So again, we can just do the same thing, or we can drop the TriBall on there and do the same thing we did last time, but let's do this quickly. again, and hit 8 to do that. So multiple ways of doing those shapes, but that's just one way to do that. Next, I'm going to do the rib feature on this. So I'm going to back out of here and I'm going to go to my shapes catalog because I have a rib feature sitting down here. It's about halfway down. If you scroll down, you'll see that rib feature. And I'm just going to drag and drop that. I'm going to hit that center point actually to place that. And what we're going to do is rotate that. As you can see, it's going the wrong direction. We're going to turn the TriBall on, lock an axis, and just left click and drag, and we're going to rotate that 90 degrees. Now we can use our handles to snap to this outside quadrant to get our reference location, because it gives it an offset from that. So it's an offset from there from 5 millimeters to the edge there. So let me make sure I did that right. 5. So we just hit the arrow over minus 5 millimeters to do that. So that'll give us our offset from that center point or that quadrant point there. We also know that this is a 45. So we can just set these values to be the same here for the length and the width. So in this case, just set it to, say, 60. We set this one to 60 as well. Let's type that in 60. And we can set the width of this rib is, let me just double check to see what the rib on that is 6. There we go. So we'll set that thickness there. So the reason I just did the 45 are those two values. If you can see here, if you select these two edges on here, you'll see that that's a 45-degree angle. So that's just an easy way to build the rib instead of going into a cross section to do that. Next, we're going to go ahead and do a pattern of this. So we're going to select our rib and use our pattern feature in this case, and we're going to do a circular pattern, and we're going to do evenly spaced. We want 6 of those. And I'm going to hit tab here to get into the next one, which is the axis, which I'll select that. So we can see that it's creating our pattern there for us. And a couple things we want to do here. So we're going to end up suppressing this one. So we're going to say allow us to suppress our source, and we're going to skip a particular node. We won't want it to actually create this last node or our first node that we have there. So we'll skip that one and hit OK. So everything still looks like it's there because we have our original shape. If you look at our structure here, you'll see that we have our original rib still sitting there. What we're going to do is just right click on that and suppress it. So that will get rid of that shape. So now we have our 5 rib patterns there. Next, we're going to put our our holes here. There's a boss and a hole on this model, so let's go ahead and just add the boss first. And what I'm going to do is go back to our starters. I'm going to scroll up here and grab our cylinder, and I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to select this arc here. So it's going to put us in the center of the model on that edge. And we know that rib, or that boss, has a height. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see, 4 millimeters high. So we're going to set that height of that to be 4 millimeters, and the diameter of that, let me find that one as well, is got a 20 millimeter diameter. So we'll set a 20 millimeter diameter. So we know from the center of this model, why I dropped it on the center is we know it's going to be moved out from center to center at a 44. It's on an 88 circle here, diameter circle, so we're just going to move this out 44. So I'm just going to left click and move this guy out 44. That'll put us on that path where it needs to be. Next, we'll go ahead and add our extrude cut through this, and we're going to place it on the center there, and it's got a diameter of 12 on that as well. So we'll go ahead and set that as well. So let's type in 12 for that to place that. Next, we need to make a linked reference for these in these other locations here, and there's basically 4 of those that we have to create. So we're going to select our boss first, and then we're going to select our cut front on our TriBall. And we can do the pattern feature on this tool, or just like we did before, and do 4 evenly spaced at 60, or we can use the TriBall to do this. So I'll show you both if you want to see how to do this. I'm going to move the TriBall into the circular reference, so I can drag this and hold the shift key, and it'll snap to that center axis. Then I can hit our spacebar to activate it, lock the axis, and I'm going to move this up by right clicking and dragging, and I'm going to say link here. We want to make 3 more at 60 degrees, and hit OK to apply that. So before you saw me do the pattern tool, so we could have done the same thing with the pattern tool. Instead of evenly spaced, we would have typed in 60 millimeters, select this axis, do the same, or we can use the TriBall to do a similar action inside of there. So that will put our bosses and our holes there in that place. And the last we need to do is our extrude cut here through this model, and we need to do a hole through this. So I'm just going to do an extrude cut. I'm going to drag it right onto the center point, and we know the width of this. Again, I'm going to right click and drag to set that symmetrically, which is 9mm slot, and I'm just going to pull it out and snap it to this face and pull the bottom handle down and snap to this, because it doesn't go all the way through the model, it just goes through a certain location there. And last, I'll just do another one here is our through cut cylinder, and I'll drag that out, and I'm gonna hold the shift key down and pick this edge here, and it'll snap us right in the middle. And we can just give the diameter of that, which is a 40mm diameter. So if we look now, we should have a through hole there and our cut. And again, everything else is on our model that we need for this. So that's all it takes to build this model in IronCAD. And now if we go over to our properties, we can set the density, which is 7800. So that should give us a mass of 2342 for this model. So that's fairly easy to do inside of here. So no real sketches in IronCAD to build this model, just all drag and drop features for this particular case. And it just taking a look at the model in 3D and thinking in 3D to design this versus doing everything in sketches, where typically you would start with a sketch, draw this one, drop another sketch, and extrude, put a sketch plane here, do a symmetrical extrude, things like that. So it's a little bit more thought process doing the 2D sketches versus actually, in my mind, to use 3D shapes to build this model, because we are working in 3D. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and we will look forward to the next video. Thanks.